Welcome to the Elevate Your Brand podcast, where we help online coaches learn how to elevate their brand, become the experts in their industries so they can bring in more clients and create a life they want. I am your host, Chris Anderson. And if you want to make a difference in the lives of others, share this episode, go over to Apple Podcasts and follow us there to leave a positive rating and review. And together we can leave a bigger positive mark on the world. So Chad, welcome to Elevate Your Brand today.
Absolutely, man. Well, first and foremost, man, thank you for allowing me to show everybody what my everyday normal apparel looks like when it comes to work. Yeah. So, we said here before we were recording, guys, he caught me on the road. So I'm actually in, I'm doing this on the fly, with the local park and ride here in Wisconsin. And, yeah, guys, enjoy it. I'm pretty transparent when it comes to stuff. So a lot of people, half my life was on the farm, half my life was off the farm. So, I've been through everything from, being ankle high and, farm stuff to, being dressed up in a tie and all that fun stuff here, guys. So I'm pretty transparent when it comes to my life, when it comes to that stuff. So.
Yeah. That's a cool thing too, that we're going to be able to dive into your story and just how you overcame some big obstacles and what led you to doing Battle Warrior Brand. So yeah, I guess kind of high level, what was that journey like? What led you to Battle Warrior Brands right now today?
Okay, so Battle Warrior Brands is actually a quite easy breakdown for me, but it's actually a theme that kind of occurred around this. So I know there's a huge theme with Warrior and all that stuff, but I was trying to tie into the story of my perseverance of getting back up. Like I said, being transparent. Going through multiple addictions, having dyslexic issues, there's been a repeated pattern throughout my life where, I would go, when the crowd goes right, I go left. It's been a natural thing since I've been little. And in the face side of it's called overcomer. But perseverance is the best word of saying it. So, the term Battle Warrior, actually, the funny thing about it is if you look up my name, Chad, there's two definitions. One is battle and the other one is warrior. And I'm like, okay, this has got to be a thing. So basic marketing 101, we just blended it all together. And the cool thing about it is when you look at, the term Chad Smith, we'll just say it that way. There's a really well-known drummer. So when it comes to like SEO and in the business side of it behind the scenes, I had I don't want to go against that current of water when it comes to that stuff. So for me, it was a real natural brand, a real natural thing just to kind of like not say label, I grew into that role and kind of just use that. There's more things down the pipeline, but we all, like, you have your own podcast. I have my own podcast. We get into this world and there's like stars and stuff moving and all fancy stuff, but you just grab what works, guys, and keep it simple and just persevere forward. So,
for sure.
But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, yeah. I was just going to kind of like play into that. Like things kind of just happen. Expect it to play out the way it did, but sometimes we have to make clear decisions to move our journeys in one direction or the other, and you made that some decisions to move your journey in this direction. So what caused you, or what was the point in your life that you said, hey, I want something different, I want to build something positive and kind of get out of this life that I'm in right now and start to build something?
Yeah, to me, that's a kind of a 3-part question. It's not like a 3-part question for me, but like it's going to be a 3-part answer. So, for me, throughout my life, I grew up in the Upper Midwest here, guys. So, I'm a true-blooded Wisconsinite, not good or bad or whatever, guys. It's just up
go
here.
Pack,
we have a history, and it's not even a history. It's just a traditions of, being around the environment of alcohol, and it's good or bad. It's a normal routine up here. So, guys, like, and I explain it to everyone, I'm 36, turning 37 back in late 80s, early 90s. There's a whole different set of rules when it comes to having kids around alcohol and all that stuff. And, what seemed normal to me ended up not being normal for certain events. So like for me, I was always in the bars, doing the Friday night fish with my parents. My parents are very active when it comes to sports and bowling and all that stuff. So a lot of that stuff, which is, like I said, for that age group was a normal routine, to us, got us involved into that industry. I'm going to use the term, entertainment industry at a very young age. And to me, Ed Millette uses the best word. It's not, the kid's not taught, it's what he sees. And to me, like everything I saw was having someone have a beverage in their hand, or, I don't smoke cigarettes or anything, but like it's, seeing someone smoking cigarettes. And it was just a natural pattern. So like growing up in the family, we all have old school grandparents, and, grandpa say, hey, while you're up, make me a drink. It's just a traditional thing, guys. It's not a bad, for me, it's not a bad thing, but it's a traditional thing. And it was just the patterns of, repeated patterns of that. And ended up being, I started tapping into alcohol. I know my mom jokes with this a little bit, but my first official alcohol in my system was like 1 or 2 years old, just because there's some choices back then, but we're not going to go in depth of that choice. But where I put it in my mouth, physically hand it to me and up and in, was early deer hunting time frame. So I'm guessing like 11, 12, somewhere in there. And to me, it was like a normal pattern. So like you go up to the hunting cabin, you go to the camper, you go whatever it is on the weekend for the entertainment. You ain't going anywhere. So have one, have two, whatever the situation is. And what it ended up being is it was just a normal pattern that just kept brewing and brewing and brewing. And what ended up happening is I would chase whatever it is for the entertainment. So for me, when I was 16, 17 years old, actually I started a little bit earlier, but like 13 years old, I got hooked into tournament fishing, and 16, 17, 18 years old, I was on the road on the weekends, regionally. And then when I turned 18, I was traveling nationally to certain locations. So for me, 18 years old and older, I was at the hotels with guys 15, 20 years older than me. I was out at the Perkins. I was doing the signatures. I was, living the road life at a very, very young age. And, people joke around. They're like, it's like being a rock star on the road. You show up in a town, you have your crazy guys, joking around, but you have the guys that have the wrap boats, the trucks. You're rolling in a town with $100,000+ worth of stuff, even though it's dead to people, it's stuff. And, you got cameras on, shows, labels, whatever it is, you're all dressed up like a NASCAR race. And, people see that and they treat you a whole differently. And ended up being it's, I saw some friends end up cheating on their wives on the road at 18, 19 years old. And to me, it was more of the go, and I'm still working on it now, but like the go mentality. So the habits of go play hard. And what ended up happening is I went into college with that same mentality, and found out I enjoyed drinking a lot more than I enjoyed classes, and got kicked out my first year, which brought up my dyslexic issue. Which was a spiral, because I'm very hyperactive, and to us, we're going to use the term ADHD, and that's a repeated term that's always out there.
Right.
To us, I'm going to say the people in that avenue, there's a few things I learned: that we process very fast. Anything that gives us a rush, we pay real attention to. And thirdly, anything we're very all in on, we pay attention to. On the fourth thing, when it comes to that, when you look at addictions and stuff, there's two repeated patterns, which are you're all in on something and you absorb and you go, it's the same mentality. So it's, our brain chases a stimulant, technically is what it is. And my stimulant in college was a typical kid at college that partied, obviously, drugs, alcohol, girls. And at the time I got kicked out of college, I came back in. I had to physically, legally be on Adderall or the school would kick me out. So ended up being is I was mixing stuff together. I wasn't working out. I wasn't, doing any fitness or anything, and had Adderall, had issues, wasn't focusing. Obviously I know why. doctor would prescribe more Adderall, so they would increase my dosage. I would drink hard. I would do more, whatever it was. So everything that you shouldn't do on Adderall, I did, and pretty much cleaned my life up a little bit at the time when I met my wife, my first wife. I'm gonna hit that, the first wife, and kind of I knew at that time certain things like whiskey and the hard stuff I had issues with, so I kind of backed away. But the thing about it is when life comes and hits you, there's multiple times that kind of life came and just dropped the floor out of me. So at that same moment, my tournament career was prematurely ending, and the bank was 2 to 3 months away from stealing my boat, stealing my fishing tackle. And I pretty much spiraled out of control, and just more down, kind of didn't appreciate being the fighter growing up. I don't want to say it that way. So like I wasn't a physical fighter, but like a mental fighter, a perseverance fighter, and kind of just lost myself in my 20s. Ended up getting married. All of us guys, if guys and girls, I'm gonna say it this way, but like sometimes you meet the right one right away, and it's sunshine and rainbows, and you get your house, you get your kids, whatever, and that normal pattern, I'm air quote normal pattern, kicks in. You have a phenomenal life. That's amazing. My life it's full of like hurricanes and storms and all that stuff. And, we ended up getting married, and obviously I didn't address my addictions issues. So at that time, alcohol I was good at. I was monitored by my wife at the time. But we were trying to have kids, and my mind wanted to have a farm and kind of pay back everyone that told me I couldn't do it growing up. And so I was so, determined and everything on that. I ended up pretty much pushing her away. And the time when we were trying, hold on here, sorry. The time that we're trying to have kids, I would be addicted to my pornography, and which would offset us trying to have kids. So ended up being 3.5, 4 years into it. After three Clomid tries, a surgery, and all that stuff, she ended up going out, finding her husband at the time while we were married, and got pregnant and kind of left. So as extreme as you're going to get extreme of a divorce, I'm not going to joke around with it, but I can kind of chuckle since it's been 5 years ago for me, because there's so much differences in my life and changes and giving back to the community and all that stuff. But sometimes it takes stuff like that to kind of like wake the addiction, and then it takes stuff to overcome it. So like, the pattern for me to overcome was multiple things. Spiritually, I had a friend that saved me the time when I knew my wife was doing all that stuff. I wanted to drive my car off the road into the house, to be brutally honest. And I knew exactly where they were. I know who it was, exact location. And I was within minutes of doing it. And she called me up. She's like, a friend of mine. She's like, "Hey, someone told me to give you a call. I just have a gut feeling I have to give you a call. Are you doing okay?" And at that moment, it was, "Hey, I need to pray for you," whatever situation was. And I had a relationship. It was, we call it now like the Creaster level. You go Christmas and Easter and kind of leave it at that. That's just how it is. And for us, she ended up kind of restoring the faith back in my life. And in that same person throughout the year, I would go party, and she was a long distance mother, is the best way of saying it. I have my own parents. I moved in with my parents to kind of get my feet back on. But when you go through dating someone in your 20s, when you hit 30, you get like this year or two of saying, "Hey, I'm free. I don't want to date no one," and just go on like a tirade. And I went on a tirade real hard, and ended up at my peak drinking 3/8 to half bottle of vodka a night, and then still go to the bars. And ended up being, at that time, I kept getting repeated patterns from that friends. She's like, "Hey, this is the daily message or daily Bible quote, whatever it was." There was repeated patterns saying, "Be vigilant, be sober. Be vigilant, be sober." I'm not as known, guys, don't quote me on the exact verse. I know it's more in depth, but I'm learning with that. I'm a new guys process of that, but I'd seen it 6-7 times in like 6 months. And for like the first one, like, all right, cool, whatever. The second time, she's like, hey, didn't I just send you this? I'm like, yeah, why? What's going on? She's like, seriously, this popped back up on my end. I did not. I'm like, all right, cool. And it just kept showing up and showing up and showing up. And finally, like after the 4th, 5th one, I'm like, okay, so what's going on? She's like, I'm not physically sending you this on purpose. It's what it's occurring. And I'm like, okay. She's like, maybe you should listen. And it wasn't she goes, someone's talking to you. Maybe you should listen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm not going to, I mean, guys, when you're in a full-blooded addiction, you can give 100 reasons why you want to not clean up. And I gave all of them. And, cause to me, sin is fun, to all of us that sin, good, bad, whatever it is, sin's fun. And you want to keep doing it. And, when it comes to that, ended up being there's a night that, my grandfather was slowly passing away. And, like a month or 2 before he passed away, our family collectively got together because we knew it was the kind of like the last hoorah of having, the big, party is the best way of saying it. And, I went over to my, family member's house, dropped the bottle of vodka up on the thing. And I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be great today. And it was a half bottle of a 175. And they're like, oh, that should be like a week. I'm like, no, that's a day. And I never in my life had the deer in the headlight look where people just kind of stopped, like the world just pauses. And it was seriously like an alien movie. And I don't want to joke like this, but like the eyes, like everything stopped. The eyes just turned. And it felt like you had like 14 different spotlights on you. And I've felt pretty good that night. Ended up kind of doing some things behind the scenes. And the next day I got a message from a very close family member and thank you. And I thank him to this day, saying, if you ever do that situation, what occurred at that moment again, she's like, I'm going to disown you in a nice way of saying it. She's like, don't ever do that again. And that was the main turning point of giving a go. So like I sobered up there. I went home. I, dumped the bottle out the next morning and kind of made it to like a month. Here in Wisconsin, I sobered up around Halloween timeframe.
You love listening to podcasts, but have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Maybe you want to build a brand, grow your business, or are looking for an excuse to talk about your favorite hobby. Whatever your reason for making a podcast, Buzzsprout is the place to start. Since 2009, Buzzsprout has helped over 300,000 people launch their own podcasts. Buzzsprout walks you step by step through the whole process and will give you powerful tools to start, grow, and monetize your podcast. Ready to get started? Click the link in the show notes to get our free step-by-step guide to starting your podcast today.
A month, give or take, guys, is gun hunting, and I'm a big outdoorsman, so I started hunting. Yeah, and it was a very good week of luck that I never had before. So I was thinking it was a test to say, okay, hey, this. I did relapse for one day. It was 2 drinks. I'm sorry, 2 days. It was 2 drinks and 2 shots in like a 4-day period, and it was a very good relapse. I'm gonna say it that way, and I'm gonna explain it this way, guys. So sometimes, a lot of times, people relapse and they get hooked back on it. Right. This was a teaching relapse where I'm like, I don't want that life again. So I had it. I'm like, and I had to stop. Yeah. Like I stopped. I'm like, no. And it was a very good learning lesson because I did not want to feel out of control. We can go down the reasons of being hungover, all that stuff, but. There was a message behind it that kept repeating on past the verse was, I don't want to have happen to like my family members of, getting a disease or whatever it is and not really truly fulfilling your life. And, my grandpa did pass away from Parkinson's. So Parkinson's is a very slow deteriorating disease. Yeah. And to me, it was just, like it went back to like a childhood memory thing. And, I still respect them and love them to this day and all of us miss them. But in general, like for me, it wasn't a sadness. I'm mad. So much that, and I'm explaining this way, guys. So like any of you guys that clean up in a period of cleaning up, the first year and a half, you're mad at the whole world. It is what it is. That's just the cycle of getting clean. And during that time frame, it didn't matter who it was, anyone that caused me pain, I was mad at, because to me, it felt like it was them pulling me down instead of myself overcoming it. And, a couple years later, about a year or two later after that, actually, let's pause and stop that. A couple months after I cleaned up, a friend of mine's like, "Hey, you're kind of funny now. I want to hear your stories just as a joke." And we ended up recording about 3 hours worth of podcasting. And he's like, "Dude, why don't you host your own?" And I'm like, I don't want to. And ended up being lockdown occurred, and they kept poking and ended up start my own podcast. And funny thing now is, out of the 2 years, I'm the only one that didn't pause and stop and reset. I did reset my direction a little bit more towards Battle Warrior, but it's starting your own podcast leads. I'm going to classify this in general, guys. If you want to start your own podcast, it is literally a gateway into a brand new community. And, it comes with you become an author, you start writing books about your journeys and stuff, you start building businesses, and you just get around the community of people that want to win.
Yep. Absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing and being transparent with your story, because I think that's one and the biggest way that other people can change is, feeling like they're connected to you because maybe they deal with the same thing. And so there's hope for them through your story. And I think that's an amazing thing. And it's so cool to hear it and just, see the transformation and the change you've had and the continued growth you're going to continue to have. But I'm curious, what would you maybe say were some ways that you created boundaries or guide rails to help you kind of avoid falling back into those, those temptations, those addictions that other people might be able to put in place as well to help them?
Well, it's common sense for me. So I knew I was going to be addicted to something. And it's, I don't want to sound bad how I word this, but it's just the pattern and usually what occurs. So like a lot of us that are high achievers, high performers, we have all this entrepreneurship stuff over and above what we do. We're very busy. Tend to be addicts in the past. Just because what ended up doing is we directed that energy and that drive and that focus into self-help, development, whatever it is, fitness, whatever the situation is you love to do. And that was my thing where I'm like, I know first it was eBay. It's like, I know I have to keep my hands doing something because I don't want to have something in my hands. And then it just rolled into podcasting and stuff. And I don't want to word it this way, but like I get addicted to now more of like the challenge. So instead of sitting here looking at, okay, hey, we have a new episode, or hey, we have this. Like for me now, it's the Cameron Hayes effect, where it's I love bow hunting, but I also love running marathons. And it took something like that to blend something like that, where each year I do something big, and then it keeps the discipline down. This last year was a marathon plus 2 mass events, and it just it picks something to keep me edging. And the thing that I look at is I have a gauge where if you guys are spiritually, non-spiritually, whatever it is, like some people are like, I put on the universe, I put on God, whatever it is, I lay an event out, and the more kickback I get on the event in general. So let's say, hey, I want to go to Vegas for this event, and then all of a sudden like obstacles start piling up, I know I need to attend that event.
Yeah. Yep.
It's really weird to kind of, when you're in sync with all that stuff. It's usually a big event or something good always happens after you face an obstacle.
I can agree. Yeah, I can agree more with that. That's like with my story, like overcoming kind of the depression and the suicidal thoughts that I had during college was, I was going to see a therapist, and I walked up to the door of the therapy room and I turned away, and I was walking away in my head. Like, this conversation was going in my head. It goes, yeah, therapy, that'd be too hard. You don't want to do that. It'd be just kind of, embarrassing and things like that. It'd be too hard. And the second time it said that in my head, I was like, I stopped in the middle of the student center and I said, too hard. It must be what I need to do then. And I turned back around and walked in the therapy room, and it was the best thing I could have done. So yeah, those moments, if once you can become in tune with those and then build those guardrails of like replacing the addiction with something more positive, I think that's such a huge growing actions that you can take for sure along that journey.
Yeah, and I still love cigars, not all the time, but it's a guy thing. And I actually, and it's going to sound really cheesy how I say it this way, but I had 2 of them New Year's Eve, and for some odd reason it just hit right, and everything just went the way it should be in a cigar, but not the way you want to be when you're in a recovering addict. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't like this feeling. It was just a very good hit of it. Not say hit. I don't want to sound bad how I word this here, guys, but like the buzz from the cigars just kicked hard. And I'm like, yeah, I don't like this, chill feeling. And it was a great reminder where it was kind of, I was slipping a little bit in general, not with the drink inside of it, but just kind of lost. I'm in between races. So it's a very gray area is the best way of saying it. And, what happens is you put so much energy into building a foundation up to that event. And then after that, it just stops. And you're like, what the heck just happened?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of, it's winter, whatever. I can lay 5 different excuses, but I lost my focus on exactly what was important in life. And kind of at the moment, I took too much cigars and found out that I don't like that stage. And I'll back off them, and I'll learn that learning lesson. But when it comes to that stuff, it's just, it's a learn. I learn best getting thrown in the fire. And there's a few other things on the plate too I need to navigate around, but I learned the hard knock way. And and
it's always, that's why it's a journey. It's always going to have, you're going to get bumps and bruises, and there's always learning lessons, but you just got to keep moving forward, keep continuing and doing your best to improve, reaching out to support and people who have been there or battling the same kind of demons. And so, Chad, we appreciate you being on Elevate Your Brand today and just sharing your story, sharing your journey, sharing some guidance for those who are trying to overcome. Before we kind of close off for this episode, where can people connect with you at, find out more about you?
Well, there's going to be a couple different areas here, guys. So on social media here, I am at the Chad M. Smith, and then also at Battle Warrior Brands, which is pretty much exactly what it spreads out here. But so I have my Battle Warrior Brands apparel line, which is at battle-warrior-brand.com. You can get tied in the email list with that stuff here. And I'm in the process of tying all the fun stuff together with the podcast world. And just pay attention here, guys. If you join the email list on that, you will be in the announcement of the launch of all the other stuff with the podcast and the ebooks and all that stuff. So it's a never ending project. And ebooks are coming. I'm going to say ebooks with an S. Awesome. I have an audio. I need to finish my audiobook. But there's another one coming on podcasting. So there's a few things coming down the pipeline I'm going to let public.
Awesome. Well, yeah, everyone, make sure you go get connected with Chad and see what he's doing, and just continue, just learn him and follow his journey. And again, Chad, we appreciate you being on the show today.
Absolutely, man. Thank you very much.
And thanks so much for tuning into this episode today. If you found value at all from this episode, please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It just helps us get this show, these messages out in front of more people. And don't forget to share this with someone who you think could benefit from listening to as well.